What's up, everybody? Welcome back to How I Feel Food. This is your host, Danny, also known as Wanny, and I want to welcome everybody back to a podcast that is strictly about the hottest takes of the beautiful game of football. Now, I know I've been on a little hiatus, but what I will be doing is that I will be challenging myself to upload every single day during the World Cup, and my content will consist of my opinions, my reactions, and a recap of all the matches that happened on that specific day. So tune in. We might have similar opinions, we might not, but it doesn't matter. The World Cup is here. It's World Cup season, baby. Let's get it. So today's episode, we're going to go over day one, which I know I am a little late. And day one consisted of Ecuador versus Qatar. And what a game that was for all Ecuadorian fans and their national team. They came out with 3 points. And then right after that, we're going to talk about day two, which consisted of 3 different games. We had England versus Iran early in the morning. Then we had Netherlands versus Senegal. And we also had USA versus Wales, which were all interesting games. And I cannot wait till we dive into those. But before we start analyzing those matches, I do want to release some of my predictions for this World Cup. And I know it's a little too late to release predictions about the group stages due to the fact that some of the groups already started their matches. So it might not be that fair. But I will release some of my predictions for other categories for this World Cup. For instance, my favorite to win it all is the Brazilian national team. They have a lot of depth in their team. They have attackers like Neymar, Vinicius, Gabriel Jesus, Rodrigo, just to mention a few. They have the likes of Thiago Silva and Marquinhos, who will most likely anchor down that defensive line. You have 2 of the greatest goalkeepers in the world right now, in Alisson and Ederson. And their midfield has a lot of creativity, along with defensive players like Casemiro and Fabinho. And before this World Cup, it looks like they have been in a very good mood. They've been happy, and it's giving me Joga Bonito vibes. And I feel like that's when the Brazilians could cause the most threat, when they're playing happily. And, Brazilians bring all that beauty into the game, making sure that it's fun and entertaining to watch. So it's going to be interesting to see them play in this World Cup, along with Neymar, who is my prediction to win the Golden Ball or the best player of this tournament. Brazil is going to need a catalyst, and Neymar has all the potential to do that. But for me, he will be the best player of this tournament if Brazil wins it all. Now, for my prediction for the top scorer of this tournament, it might throw people off, but it really shouldn't. And I believe Lionel Messi will score the most goals in this tournament. He's in fantastic form with PSG, and he's playing amazing with Neymar. And, Argentina has a team that is willing to stick up for Messi, but Messi really has to do all he can to carry this team. And, he's going to be able to do that by providing assists and scoring goals. They have their first match against Saudi Arabia, which is a weak team, and I feel like Messi could potentially score a good amount of goals in that match, at least 2. But, for me, he has history of scoring a lot of goals. So, it's going to be interesting to see if this prediction is accurate. But Messi is Messi. He wants it all. You can tell he wants it. You can tell Argentina wants it. They won the Copa America. So it's time for Messi to carry them. And I think he's going to do that by scoring a lot of goals this tournament. For the Golden Glove, my prediction to be the best goalkeeper of this tournament is Courtois from Belgium, who plays for Real Madrid. Belgium is in a very competitive group with Croatia and Canada, both teams that cannot be slept on. Croatia plays very organized football, and Canada is one of those teams that is on the come up. They have a lot of young players who are playing overseas, and they also came in first in the CONCACAF qualifiers, which was very well deserved and very well earned. But I feel like Courtois is going to be the difference maker in these group stage matches and in the playoffs if they make it, because Belgium's defense is aging and I feel like that is the weakest link of their squad. So they're going to rely on Courtois to make a lot of great saves, and we already know how Courtois performs at the biggest stages in the world. For instance, at the Champions League final versus Liverpool, he came in so clutch for Real Madrid. And, I feel like he's really going to be a difference maker for this squad and for the group stages especially, because it's going to be very close between these teams. So Courtois for Golden Glove. For the best young player of this tournament, I have two options. Especially after today, it might have created a little bias. My first option was actually Jamal Musiala from Bayern Munich, who has been playing amazing for them, to be honest. And, he's very young. He's very creative. He can play in the midfield. And it all really depends on how much playing time he gets with Germany. But, I think the manager is going to find a way to include him in the lineup. But it really just depends on how many minutes he gets. He is very young and he is very talented. But my second option is Jude Bellingham from England, who plays for Borussia Dortmund. Both of these players play in the Bundesliga. They're both midfielders. They both keep it cool, calm, and composed. But most importantly, they play with a maturity level that a lot of players aren't used to, especially at that age. So it's going to be interesting to see how their development progresses through the tournament. But Jude Bellingham had an amazing game today with England. He scored a goal. But it's definitely going to be between these two players. Now that we have gone over my predictions, we can finally dive into the analysis of these first matches of the World Cup. The first one being Ecuador versus Qatar. And I was actually very disappointed before this match because there were rumors surfacing the internet about bribery. And I just feel like that's very disrespectful to the sport. And it wouldn't be the first time that a host tries to do that, because in 2002, Korea did the same thing, and they were influencing referees, and a lot of calls went in their favor, and that helped them progress further into the tournament. I believe they actually made the semifinals, and it just sucks because a lot of these teams play very hard, and they try very hard to make it to these stages. So it's just not fair. And actually, when the game started, I almost thought, this corruption was true, because Ecuador did score a goal, and there wasn't offsides that didn't seem apparent. But based off rules, it was considered an offside. But, it didn't seem apparent, and it just looked like it was a controversial call, because not that many people are aware of that rule of offsides. But a few minutes later, Ecuador kept it cool, calm, and composed, and they received the penalty. And it almost seemed like it was good karma. But once they received that penalty, Ener Valencia stepped up, took the penalty, and sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. And, that was just a relief for a lot of Ecuadorians, I feel like. And shout out to Alaya, because your team got a great result yesterday. And after that penalty, they kept playing hard. And then Ener Valencia, with his heroic antics, scored a beautiful header. The header was well placed into the bottom corner, and it was 2-0 before halftime. The second half wasn't as entertaining, but Ecuador did what they had to do in order to assure those 3 points. And it was just a very great result, because they did play hard and they played very well during their qualifiers. So it's good to see them win at the biggest stages, because that progress doesn't always transition into the tournament, but Ecuador was able to do that yesterday. You can tell that they were the better team, and they showed those levels, so hats off to them. The second match for Group A was actually Senegal versus Netherlands, which was a very interesting matchup because it was actually very, very even. Each team had their shots on target. Each team had a good amount of possession of the ball. But the Netherlands goalkeeper actually came in very clutch. He made a few saves that helped Netherlands keep that clean sheet. But, one of the biggest blows for Senegal was losing Mané. It was announced that he wasn't going to play this World Cup. And I feel like that's a big blow, because Mané is, the Senegalese idol and icon, and he's their best player. And although Senegal does have more talent on their squad in addition to Mané, it wasn't enough. And honestly, Mendy, who, was being rated as a very good keeper, I have always thought he was a fraud. I'm sorry to say that. But today, he made a big mistake. And Netherlands capitalized off that and got their goal. After that, they managed the time wisely. And in the end of the game, they iced it with a second goal. And that's what you're supposed to do in the World Cup. You can't let somebody catch up. You got to keep the momentum going. And Netherlands did that. And I feel like Netherlands is the favorite to win this group. And I think Ecuador is going to come in a close second, but it's all going to come down to that Senegal versus Ecuador game. The other two fixtures for today were from Group B. The first one being England versus Iran, and the second one being the U.S. versus Wales. And England surprised me today. I know that they're levels ahead of Iran, but in previous tournaments, they haven't been playing the most entertaining football. But today they proved me wrong. They scored 6 goals, and although they conceded 2, it shows that they don't need Harry Kane to score all the goals. He wasn't even on the score sheet today. You saw Rashford come off the bench and score a goal. Grealish score a goal. Saka got 2. And a lot of these goals were bangers. But England really surprised me today, I'm not going to lie. And they just showed levels today. There was a lot of disparity between the two teams today. And, it just shows that they might go far in this tournament. They have the players to do so. It just all depends on the way they play. The second match was the USA versus Wales, and in my opinion, that was the battle for second place in this group. And I actually predicted a draw for this game. And some people couldn't believe that. I know the US has a lot of youth in their team. And that's important because they were legit running circles around the Wales team at a point. The midfield was playing great. There was a lot of passes. But the team might be missing experience because the U.S. did take a lead in the first half. And it was 1-0 up until like the 80s. And, you need that experience in order to finish off these games. You should be winning those games. Once you're in the lead, I think that's when experience matters the most. And today, the U.S. might have missed that. You needed somebody who could manage the time off the clock because time management is super important. But, Wales didn't give up either. And Wales has Gareth Bale, who always steps up when he plays for the national team. And today, he won a foul in the box. He took the PK, and even though the goalie guessed the right way, there was too much power behind the shot, and he couldn't stop it. But the USA did show some potential today. I did like how they played today. But maybe they just need to find ways to ice games. Because today, I would say they played a little bit better than Wales, but the score doesn't show that. In reality, you only need one chance to score. And although Wales did have a few chances, I feel like the USA was causing a lot more threat. So they have to be able to solidify those chances and score them. But other than that, it was a great game. And, there was no difference maker in the game. It was 1-1. And like I said, I feel like this game was for second place. So now it's going to be very interesting to see who comes in second because England showed levels, and I feel like they're going to come in first. But I feel like the USA has the talent to come in second, and today was their chance to solidify that. But we're going to see what happens. Unfortunately and sadly, that's all I have for today. And I can't wait to keep releasing more content. Definitely stay tuned because I will be releasing tomorrow with a recap for day 3 of the World Cup. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. This was Wanny from High Off at Foot. Enjoy the World Cup.